Science officer, analyze these communication patterns, Commander Vexthor ordered, gesturing at the streams of data flowing across his display. The humans were broadcasting on all frequencies, news reports, military commands, civilian messages of hope and determination. Unlike previous conquests, there was remarkably little panic. Fascinating, Science Officer Mira replied, her compound eyes refracting the blue glow of Earth below. They're creating information networks to replace those we destroyed. They're using old technology, something called radio and analog signals that our jamming can't fully block. Vexthor zoomed in on a gathering in what humans called New York. A female human stood on a makeshift platform addressing thousands. Her words, translated through Zolaxian algorithms, struck him as oddly powerful. We have faced disasters before. We have weathered wars and plagues. We have survived our own worst impulses. And now we face the stars themselves. But remember, we are human. Adaptability is our birthright. The crowd's response wasn't fear. It was applause, determination. Even what the translation matrix identified as humor, that uniquely human response to stress. Tactical assessment, Vexthor commanded. His second-in-command, Battle Director Krell, displayed global military movements. Human armed forces are consolidating, but not in expected patterns. They're creating distributed networks rather than centralized command structures. They're already adapting to our targeting algorithms. Most concerning were the non-military responses. Universities transformed into research centers overnight. Entertainment networks became information distribution systems. Religious buildings converted to shelters and hospitals. They're not just fighting us, Mira observed. They're reorganizing their entire civilization in response to our presence. Vexthor's attention was drawn to a small notification. Human. Scientists had already begun analyzing debris from a Zolaxian scout ship that had malfunctioned in Earth's atmosphere. Somehow, they were extracting working technology from the wreckage. Temporal projection? Vexthor asked. The ship's quantum, computer-calculated probabilities. Unlike the 17 previous conquests where resistance crumbled within days, the projection showed Earth's resistance strengthening over time. The conquest timeline extended not for weeks, but years, with an increasing probability of failure? Impossible, muttered Krell, his mandibles clicking in agitation. But Vexthor was beginning to understand. The Zolaxians had conquered worlds by exploiting predictable responses to overwhelming force. These humans weren't responding predictably at all. On his private screen, Vexthor opened files on human history. Their world wars, their survival of natural disasters, their constant technological reinvention, their peculiar ability to cooperate with former enemies when necessary. Begin the invasion, came the High Command's impatient order. No more delays. As the first wave of dropships prepared to descend to Earth, Vexthor felt that strange sensation again. Doubt. For the first time in his 3 centuries of military service, he wondered if he was about to be part of a historic mistake. On Earth, below, humans looked skyward and prepared for a fight unlike any they had faced before. One they somehow sensed they were uniquely equipped to win. Dr. Sarah Chen guided a group of new refugees through the underground complex beneath Boston's ruins. The former subway tunnels now housed a thriving resistance hub, with sections dedicated to research, manufacturing, living quarters, and even hydroponic gardens growing under salvaged Zolaxian light panels. How did you figure out their technology so quickly? Asked Miguel, a former auto mechanic who had escaped the Philadelphia purge. Sarah smiled, stopping at a workstation where teenagers were disassembling Zolaxian drones. We didn't start from scratch. Their tech is advanced but not magical. Physics works the same for them as for us. She picked up a crystalline power cell. Their energy storage is remarkable, but the principles aren't so different from our batteries. The real advantage is how quickly we share information now. The group passed a communications hub where operators coordinated with resistance cells worldwide. On their screens, engineers in Mumbai demonstrated how to convert Zolaxian cooling systems into water purifiers. Australian outback survivors showed techniques for masking human heat signatures from alien scanners. Before the invasion, Knowledge was power to be hoarded, Sarah explained. Now it's power to be shared. A solution found in Tokyo reaches Nairobi within hours. In one corner, a bizarre contraption hummed quietly. A Zolaxian quantum communicator spliced into human computer systems. The aliens had never imagined their secure networks could be hacked with repurposed video game processors and modified satellite dishes. Their weakness is evolutionary, Sarah explained to Miguel as they watched a 12-year-old girl successfully rewire an alien medical device. The Zolaxians evolved in a stable environment where improvements came slowly, over generations. They respect hierarchy and follow established procedures. Their technology reflects this. Elegant, efficient, but inflexible. She gestured around the chaotic hub where humans worked with frantic energy. We evolved through ice ages, floods, droughts, and our own destructive tendencies. Adaptability isn't just our strength, it's our survival strategy. On his command ship, Vex Thor studied footage of human adaptation with growing concern. Their reverse engineering skills defied all predictive models. Their improvisation is disturbing, Scientific Director Zella admitted, displaying comparative analyses. Look at these modifications to our shield generators. They've reconfigured the polarity matrix in ways our engineers never considered. Because our engineers follow established design principles, Vex Thor realized, these humans ignore best practices entirely. The display showed a human resistance cell in Brazil using Zolaxian agricultural drones as combat units, something Zolaxian military doctrine would never permit. They're not constrained by how things should work, Zella observed. They only care about what works right now. Most concerning was footage from a captured human research facility. The humans had been studying Zolaxian biology with surprising insight. They're adapting to us, Vex Thor said quietly. Not just our technology, but understanding our thinking, our biases, our blind spots. An alert interrupted them. Human forces had launched a coordinated attack on 7 supply depots simultaneously. Somehow, they had already learned to predict Zolaxian patrol patterns. This species doesn't just adapt, Vex Thor realized. They evolve during conflict, not between conflicts. Every engagement makes them stronger. For a species that had perfected warfare over centuries, this concept was almost incomprehensible and deeply unsettling. The Cairo Command Center buzzed with multilingual conversations. Screens displayed resistance activities across 6 continents, while the scent of coffee mingled with unusual spices from improvised meals being shared among fighters. Imam Farouk and Rabbi Goldstein huddled over tactical displays, their traditional religious garments modified with practical combat accessories. Neither man had military training before the invasion, but necessity had transformed them into capable strategists. The keyword Zolaxian supply convoy will pass through the Sinai at dawn, Farouk said, highlighting the route. Their algorithm is predictable once you understand their cultural aversion to darkness. Goldstein nodded, making calculations. The South African cell shared a new EMP design that should disable their sensors without alerting their command ships. He gestured to a young woman monitoring communications. Maya, contact our friends in Gaza and Tel Aviv. We'll need both teams. A year ago, these communities had been locked in generations of conflict. Now they coordinated with seamless efficiency, their former hostilities seeming distant and irrelevant in the face of extinction. Across the room, a captured Zolaxian technician worked alongside Egyptian engineers, helping them understand alien power systems. The technician, named Zex, had surrendered after witnessing humans rescue injured Zolaxian soldiers from a crashed transport, an act of compassion that violated everything he'd been told about these savage primitives. Your cooperation with former enemies defies statistical models, Zex commented, his translator struggling with the concept. How do you resolve contradictory cultural imperatives? Maya smiled as she passed by. We don't. We hold contradictions in tension. That's the human way. On the command ship, Vex Thor studied footage of the phenomenon spreading across Earth. Former warlords in Central Africa now protected civilian evacuations. Street gangs in Sao Paulo distributed medical supplies. Nations that had aimed nuclear Weapons at each other now shared defense technology. Their historical records show these alliances should be impossible, Strategy Director Krell insisted, displaying conflict data. These human factions have religious, ideological, and territorial disputes stretching back centuries. Perhaps we misunderstood the nature of human conflict, Vexthor suggested, watching footage of American and Chinese soldiers working together to ambush a Zolaxian patrol. Their divisions aren't weaknesses to be exploited. They're features of their adaptability. Krell's mandibles clicked in frustration. This contradicts all social conflict models. Division should prevent coordination. Vexthor accessed the ship's historical database, studying Earth's complex history of wars and alliances, conflicts, and reconciliations. Their divisions create diverse perspectives, different approaches to problems. Their arguments aren't just conflicts, they're explorations of possibilities. The tactical display updated, showing another failed attempt to turn human factions against each other. Somehow, their psychological warfare specialists had crafted messages designed to rekindle ancient hatreds between Japanese and Korean resistance cells. Instead, both groups had recognized the manipulation and coordinated a counterattack. They argue because they can, not because they must, Vexthor realized. And when survival requires unity, they unite without abandoning their diversity of thought. It was a concept so alien to Zolaxian hive mind culture that many of his officers couldn't process it, but Vexthor was beginning to understand. This paradoxical solidarity might be humanity's most powerful weapon. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah moved through the underground laboratory, checking progress at each workstation. The facility beneath the University of Ghana had once been a simple storage area. Now it buzzed with breakthrough research that would have won multiple Nobel Prizes in peacetime. "Show me the shield modifications," he requested, approaching a team led by Dr. Juana Hernandez, a theoretical physicist who had walked across 3 countries to reach this research hub. Juana activated a holographic display cobbled together from salvaged Zolaxian components and human gaming hardware. "We've identified a fundamental assumption in Zolaxian shield design," she explained, highlighting crystalline structures. They build perfect, symmetrical energy fields because their mathematics prizes elegance above all. The display shifted to show the human alternative, a chaotic, seemingly random pattern of overlapping fields. "Our shield design looks messy by comparison, but creates unpredictable energy pathways. Their weapons can't find a consistent point to breach." Kwame nodded, reminded again of how human imperfection often yielded unexpected advantages. "Progress on the communication system?" Across the lab, Adnan, a 14-year-old coding prodigy, waved him over. The boy's workstation was surrounded by disassembled Zolaxian communication devices connected to what appeared to be vintage Earth smartphones. "Their quantum encryption is amazing," Adnan explained, fingers flying across multiple interfaces. But they never considered that someone would use outdated primitive technology to bypass it entirely. They're security checks for sophisticated intrusion, not simple workarounds. Adnan demonstrated how he'd created a backdoor into Zolaxian battlefield communications using retro technology the aliens had dismissed as obsolete. They think linearly, always forward, always better. They don't understand that sometimes the best path forward is actually backward. On the command vessel, Scientific Director Zella struggled to explain the latest human innovations to a growing audience of concerned Zolaxian officers. "These modifications shouldn't work," she insisted, displaying human adaptations of Zolaxian technology. "They violate fundamental engineering principles. They're connecting systems never meant to interface. They're using materials that shouldn't be compatible." Vexthor studied the evidence with growing fascination. Yet they do work, sometimes more effectively than our original designs. Security footage showed humans in Santiago repurposing Zolaxian terraforming equipment into devastating weapons. In Mumbai, they'd somehow converted medical scanners into devices that could detect Zolaxian stealth fields. "They think sideways," Vexthor observed. "We see technology as a progressive line of improvement. They see it as a web of possibilities. The most disturbing reports came from the engineering division. Humans weren't just copying Zolaxian technology. They were improving it in ways Zolaxian scientists hadn't considered, despite their 1,000-year head start. How is this possible? Demanded Battle Director Krell. Their species hasn't even achieved reliable interplanetary travel. Vexthor considered this paradox. Perhaps constraint breeds creativity. Our abundant resources and time allowed for methodical development. Their limitations forced them to innovate rapidly, to make unexpected connections. He displayed Earth's technological history, how they'd advanced from primitive flight to space exploration in a single century, while Zolaxian progress had taken millennia of careful, incremental steps. We perfected one path, Vexthor realized. They explored, thousands simultaneously. We optimized, they revolutionized. The medical bay of the Sydney Resistance Hub had been converted from an underground shopping mall. Wounded fighters filled improvised beds, their injuries testament to the brutal 3-day battle against the Devastator units. Sergeant Maya Wong lay on a hospital bed, her body wrapped in regenerative bandages salvaged from Zolaxian medical supplies. Despite multiple fractures and severe blood loss, she remained conscious, speaking with other survivors. Dr. James Peterson checked her vitals, shaking his head in amazement. "You should be in a coma, not giving tactical briefings," he commented, adjusting her pain medication. Most species would have shut down with these injuries. Maya smiled through cracked lips. Humans are too stubborn to follow biological expectations. She motioned toward the wounded around her. "Look at us, we're all still planning our next move." Across the room, elderly fighters with broken bones taught teenagers how to modify captured Zolaxian weapons. Wounded engineers sketched designs for improved defenses. No one had given up, despite injuries that should have been incapacitating. "The Devastators weren't prepared for our persistence," Maya explained to a group of new recruits gathering around her bed. "They're stronger, faster, more durable, but they expect battles to follow predictable patterns. When we kept fighting beyond what they calculated as our physical limits, their tactical programming couldn't adapt." She displayed footage captured from a Devastator's helmet camera, showing humans continuing to fight despite injuries that would have terminated most species' resistance. They don't understand that human limits are mostly psychological, not physical. The Zolaxian medical ship orbiting Earth had never been so full. Injured Devastators filled regeneration chambers, their enhanced bodies requiring extensive repairs after the Sydney operation. Chief Medical Officer Zilara presented her findings to Commander Vexthor with visible distress. The Devastator units achieved their objective but at unsustainable casualty rates. Human resistance continued long after our biological models predicted collapse. She displayed comparative scans showing human and Zolaxian neural pathways. Their brains contain unusual feedback loops between pain centers and reward centers. When they approach physical failure, something happens. Their determination increases rather than decreases. Vexthor studied footage of human resistance fighters continuing to fight despite catastrophic injuries. "They've weaponized their will," he observed quietly. "It defies evolutionary logic," insisted Zilara. "Pain exists to signal threat and trigger retreat. Their response is counterproductive to individual survival, yet effective for group survival," Vexthor countered. He accessed Earth's historical archives, displaying ancient human hunting techniques. "Look at their evolutionary history. They pursued prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, even if they suffered in the process. Their bodies adapted to prioritize persistence over comfort." He showed Devastator combat footage alongside human athletic competitions. "Notice the similarities? These marathons and ultra-endurance events they perform for recreation. They're practicing the same persistence that makes them formidable warriors." The footage showed humans pushing through pain barriers that would stop most species, smiling even as their bodies approached failure. "The Devastators were designed to overwhelm with superior force," Vexthor concluded. "But against humans, overwhelming force isn't enough. They've evolved to endure what should be unendurable, and somehow find strength in the struggle itself." Theo. Ruins of Vancouver's financial district glittered with crystalline shards from damaged fear generators. Captain James Chen led a small team through the debris, collecting samples of the alien technology. Despite the recent victory, the emotional aftermath lingered. Occasional waves of artificial fear still emanated from partially functioning devices. "How did you do it?" asked Lieutenant Rodriguez, a new transfer from the Mexico City resistance. "The report said you were completely incapacitated by the fear field, then somehow turned it around." Chen paused, his expression thoughtful as he secured a crystal fragment in a containment box. "I didn't overcome the fear," he explained. "That's what the Zolaxians expected, that we'd try to suppress it, fight against it. Instead, I surrendered to it." Seeing Rodriguez's confusion, Chen continued. "Human emotions aren't just reactions. They're information. When the fear hit me, I stopped fighting it and asked myself what it was telling me." His eyes grew distant with the memory. "I realized the fear was showing me exactly what needed to be done. The path that terrified me most was attacking the control center directly." Around them, other resistance fighters nodded in understanding. Many had experienced similar transformations during the battle. "Our emotions evolved to protect us," Chen explained, helping a technician dismantle a smaller fear generator. "Fear identifies threats. Anger mobilizes resources. Grief processes loss. The Zolaxians thought they could use our emotions against us because they process their own emotions as malfunctions to be corrected. They never understood that human emotions are adaptive." Rodriguez gestured to a wall where someone had painted, a quote in bright colors, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." "So that's not just a motivational saying?" Chen smiled. "It's practically the story of our species." On the Zolaxian command ship, Psychological Warfare Director Trell presented her findings to an increasingly disturbed audience of senior officers. "The emotional manipulation weapons have failed," she stated bluntly, displaying brain scans from captured humans. "Not only failed, but backfired catastrophically. The fear generators in Vancouver, the despair inducers in Milan, the rage stimulators in Lagos, all were turned against us." Vexthor studied the data with fascination. "These scans show intense emotional activation, yet improved tactical performance. How is this possible?" Trell's normally confident demeanor had given way to confusion. "In Zolaxian psychology, emotional activation impairs cognitive function. Our weapons were designed based on this universal principle. But these humans," she displayed comparative brain scans, "their emotional centers connect to their reasoning centers through neural pathways we don't possess." The display showed human fighters experiencing artificial fear, then channeling that activation into heightened awareness and decisive action. The despair weapons had somehow triggered not surrender, but unprecedented unity among affected humans. "They experience emotions more intensely than any species we've encountered," Trell continued. "Yet instead of being disabled by this intensity, they're enhanced by it." Vexthor accessed human cultural archives displaying their arts, literature, and music. "Look at their stories. They don't celebrate emotional suppression as we do. They celebrate emotional transformation. Their heroes don't conquer fear. They act despite it. They don't eliminate grief. They grow through it." The implications were disturbing. The very weapons that had subdued dozens of civilizations were useless against humans. Worse, they provided these strange creatures with emotional fuel that somehow made them more formidable, not less. As Vexthor was escorted from the high command chamber, he noticed the subtle changes in the Zolaxian officers around him. Their mandibles clicked with nervous energy. Their normally perfect formations showed slight irregularities. After centuries of easy conquests, the prospect of failure had introduced something new to their hive mind culture: doubt. In his private quarters, now under surveillance, Vexthor continued his analysis of human resistance patterns. The data told a story few Zolaxians could comprehend. Each attempted conquest strategy had not only failed but had somehow strengthened humanity's response. Cutting off their power grid had accelerated their energy innovation. Targeting their leaders had created decentralized command structures more resilient than the original. Exploiting their divisions had forged unprecedented unity. Attacking their bodies had revealed their extraordinary endurance. Manipulating their emotions had awakened their psychological resilience. "Every weakness we target becomes a strength," he murmured, organizing his findings into a comprehensive document. "This species doesn't just adapt to threats. It's transformed by them." A soft chime indicated an encrypted message had arrived through channels even Zolaxian security didn't know existed. Dr. Sarah Chen from the Boston Resistance Hub had responded to his earlier communication. "Your assessment of our paradoxical nature is accurate," her message read. "But you've missed something important. What appears contradictory to Zolaxian thinking is complementary in human experience. Our divisions create our adaptability. Our physical limitations drive our innovation. Our emotional complexity enables our resilience." She included data from resistance hubs worldwide, showing how human diversity, the very quality the Zolaxians had targeted, had created a resistance impossible to predict or counter. In the Grand Strategy Chamber, Supreme War Director Zexalak outlined his plan for Earth's final subjugation. Massive holograms displayed overwhelming force deployments, planet cracker weapons, millions of ground troops, orbital bombardments designed to break all resistance. "Commander Vexthor's assessment is flawed," Zexalak declared to the assembled officers. "No species can withstand this level of force. These humans will break like all others before them." Battle Director Krell cautiously raised an objection. "Our data suggests increased force against humans produces proportionally increased resistance. Perhaps we should consider—" "Weakness," interrupted Zexalak. "Vexthor's cowardice has infected you too. The Zolaxian Empire has never retreated, never failed. We will not start now because of primitive creatures who barely understand space travel." The officers nodded in unison, centuries of cultural conditioning overriding the growing evidence before them. Only Scientific Director Zella remained silent, her compound eyes studying the human response predictions that contradicted Zexalak's confidence. In his quarters, Vexthor completed his document, a comprehensive analysis titled, "Why Aliens Can't Beat Humanity, the Ultimate Guide." He encrypted it with special protocols designed to reach human resistance leaders worldwide. "Our greatest mistake," he wrote in the conclusion, "was seeing human contradictions as weaknesses to exploit, rather than recognizing them as the source of an extraordinary evolutionary advantage, the ability to transform adversity into advancement." As Zexalak's grand offensive prepared to launch, Vexthor knew he was witnessing the beginning of the most spectacular military miscalculation in Zolaxian history. 6 months after the Zolaxian retreat, the United Earth Council held a special session in their new headquarters, built from repurposed alien technology in Geneva. Representatives from every nation filled the chamber, a living testament to humanity's unprecedented unity. At the center of attention stood Vexthor, no longer wearing the armor of a Zolaxian commander but dressed in simple human clothing. He had requested modifications to appear less intimidating. His claws dulled, his mandibles trimmed, his height surgically reduced to match human proportions. "The turning point came when I realized what makes humans unique among all species we've encountered," Vexthor explained, his voice translated through modified Zolaxian technology. "Your contradictions aren't flaws, they're features essential to your survival." Holographic displays showed pages from The Ultimate Guide, alongside battle footage demonstrating how human resistance cells had implemented its strategies worldwide. "While I was still commanding Zolaxian forces, I began sharing tactical information with key resistance leaders," Vexthor admitted. Dr. Chen in Boston, General Ortega in Mexico City, Professor Nkrumah in Ghana. Together, we compiled vulnerabilities in Zolaxian systems that my own people couldn't see. Council President Yamamoto leaned forward. "What made you betray your own species, Commander?" Vexthor's compound eyes reflected the chamber lights. It wasn't betrayal, but recognition. The invasion was both unjust and ultimately futile. My civilization had forgotten something yours embodies, that true advancement comes through challenge, not dominance. He displayed comparative footage of Earth's response over the 2-year conflict, the accelerated innovation, the unprecedented cooperation, the transformation of human society under pressure. Zolaxian civilization stagnated after conquering our neighboring worlds, Vexthor explained. We perfected our technology, but lost our adaptability. We achieved unity, but sacrificed the creative friction that drives progress. Outside the Council, Chambers humanity was already implementing lessons from the conflict. The first unified Earth defense system incorporated both Zolaxian technology and uniquely human innovations. Schools worldwide added xenobiology to their curriculums. Artists created works processing the collective trauma and triumph of the invasion. Most significantly, humanity's first interstellar vessel was under construction in orbit. Not a warship, but an exploration vessel designed to seek peaceful contact with other civilizations. Inside the ship's main conference room, a passage from the Ultimate Guide had been inscribed on a plaque of reclaimed Zolaxian metal. Humanity's greatest strength lies not in technology or numbers, but in its contradictions. They argue yet unite, break yet heal, fear yet advance. They transform every challenge into growth, every setback into innovation. Their species doesn't merely survive adversity, it's enhanced by it. This alchemy of turning weakness into strength ensures that every threat they face becomes another chapter in the story of why aliens can't beat humanity. As Earth's first ambassadors prepared to venture into the stars, they carried with them not just the technology gleaned from their invaders, but a profound understanding of their own nature, the paradoxical combination of fragility and resilience that had protected their planet and would now guide their journey among the stars.